What's up? So once again, here I am. So my talk today is about how to observe our Kubernetes cluster in several of ways. And I'll present myself. Some of you already knew me from last presentation, but my name is Rotem, and I am a developer for around 15 years, mainly in the DevOps industry in the past 5 years. I'm practicing yoga, I love basketball, and I'm presenting here for my second talk, which is really cool. And currently I'm the Director of Engineering at ARMO, which is responsible for, and the maintainers basically, of Kubescape, which is an open source security for Kubernetes solution. Check us out on GitHub, and we have like many followers. We recently got accepted to CNCF as a sandboxing, so it's very much exciting. So let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a DevOps panda that sat all day and all night and trying to realize how to create and maintain a Kubernetes cluster in production. So yeah, that's easy, right? You know, create is easy, maintain is even easier and to observe your cluster is even, you know, more easy all around. So yeah, it's really not easy if you're doing it by yourself. Kudos to you. But what I do is I just will preview, you know, and present something that I just made. I created my own Minikube. I install Helm charts of Grafana, Prometheus, and Mongo. That's it. Simple cluster, very short, very thin. So you will believe me, I just screenshot my pods that are running. And, you know, I just install those, and I want to present you how do I observe. And again, that's a small cluster, okay? I know that we all have Kubernetes clusters with hundreds of nodes, if not even, you know, many clusters with hundreds of nodes, and we need to manage those, and it's not that easy. So what I do is observe. Like, what do I need to observe, and what's that? So remember my story. I want to run my own cluster in production, right, and to have a clear view about that. And I wanted to understand a few simple things, right? Very simple things that I'm sure we all want to understand about our cluster. So what are my workloads and the status of my cluster, the logs, the CPU and memory consumption, how many nodes I really need. I need to optimize that. Maybe I'm paying a lot of money for AWS or any other provider. How many replicas do I need for my deployments? And is my cluster finally secure? I know it's the last thing here at the list. I think it's very much important, and we'll get to it in this talk. So how do we do that? If you're doing it by kubectl, again, great job. It's very hard to do that by that. And I will focus on 3 observability platforms that I'm using. There are a lot more, but I have just 20 minutes, I think, so I'll focus on those. So I'm using Lens, I'm using the Prometheus and Grafana, and I'm also using the ARMO platform, and we'll get to each and every one of those and drill down. So let's start with Lens. I know there was a fuss in the last month about Lens, and now, you know, they took the open sourcing and things, but I still really love those platform, so I will talk about it a bit. So what we're seeing here is how do I see the info and status. Hope you're seeing that because it's dark and there is a light here, but how do I see the info and status of my cluster? So I have here my demo cluster. Okay, I just created a demo cluster. Again, this Minikube that I showed you before with Mongo, and, you know, I have stateful set there, and I have replicas and everything there. And what do I see here? I see my workloads. I see my pods. I just just click the pod thing, and I see my entire pod, what's running, what's not running, what's pending, okay? So I see it visually, and it's really easy to manage because I can click it, I can stop the pod, I can delete the pod, I can do whatever I want. So that's one thing that we're doing in Lens. You can see the info. I just click on the replica set of Grafana, so you can see when it's created, what's the CPU usage, what are the labels, the annotation, everything that you can see by kubectl, but it's just one click and you see it all. So it's very easy, and I really like it. And regarding security-wise, right, I had like the long list there that what I want to see when I observe my clusters. So what we made is Kubescape Lens extension. Okay, it's very easy to install extension in Lens, and it's very easy to develop ones. So we develop ones for security. And what do we see in that extension? We can see on one hand the Kubescape extension down here, and you can see the whole resources that failed. But on the other hand, you can just click on the workloads and see the info and also the security, on which test this control failed in security-wise. Does we define the CPU and memory limits, request limits, or any other thing that you can see right here in the list. So that's regarding Lens. Again, I can speak a lot about Lens. I'm using it often, also with my production environment. But again, we're in just 20 minutes, so I'll move forward to Prometheus. Personally, I adore Prometheus. Really, I think it's a wonderful tool. Again, maybe not for like really big organization. I know Datadog is now very into things, but again, I really like it, and it's open source, so kudos to them. So what do I see in Prometheus? I installed my Kubernetes exporter, and I see the info of my cluster, right? How many CPU do I need? How many CPU consumption do I see? How many nodes there are? All those things that we saw back then in Lens, but here I see it graphical way, right? If I have like a peak in a CPU in one of my nodes, then I see it right here in this exporter. Moving forward, this is the node, the memory usage, and you can, of course, you can make your own dashboards, right? Taking this matrix and that matrix and just combine it according to what you want. So it's very easy to make that visualize in Grafana. Also, kubelet info. Again, I'm just presenting what I am doing in my Minikube. So you can see here the request duration, the RPC rate, and the CPU usage, and many more. And going to the security, as Lens, also Prometheus has their exporter. So you can create your own exporter, and we created like Kubescape exporter to understand what's the status of your cluster in security-wise. I mean, how many failed resources you have, what's the rate, and so on and so forth. How many controls have failed in status, how many passed, how many excluded, we ignored that, etc. And of course, at the end, what Prometheus and Grafana has that I think Lens does not have is the option to alert. We can connect the alert manager and to alert about certain metrics that we're responsible to or that we need to understand better. And can define like a threshold or something like that and alert just when we're getting there. Okay, so the third platform that I'm using is the ARMO platform. And I'm using it mostly for security purposes. And what I've noticed, and I went to this link of CNCF, is the 5 Kubernetes top RBAC mistakes that we want to avoid, and how do I observe that? So we have the improper use of role aggregation, and the unused roles, and the duplicate role grant, and the grant of missing role, and the cluster administrator role granted unsuccessfully, and all that you can see right in this link. It's from CNCF, and what ARMO platform provides is taking those mistakes and making it graphically. Okay, so if I'm talking about cluster administrator role grant unsuccessfully, so what I see here is that Ben has the Ben Almighty binding to the cluster admin. So yeah, that's something I made, but you get the idea, right? I can see it very visually that all those users or subject has the cluster admin role. So that's one thing. And the other thing is the unused role. So I can see here all those roles that are not in use, so I can just avoid them or delete them. Why do I need them in my system? It can be just a bridge for someone to enter. Where is it? Okay. So again, those are a few RBAC visualizer things and tasks that we can do, and you can make your own query on the RBAC, which is really nice. We can check if there are some workloads that are unused or anything else, what are the bindings that we're having there. And like if I want to close this session and understand, and what I want you to take from that session is there are a lot of ways to observe Kubernetes, but I think everyone needs to get his thoughts about what's important for him. I mean, if you're into security, of course everyone should be worried about security, okay? But you need to take the tool that fits you. You can take it as graphical Grafana and Prometheus. You can take it as the lens thing if you're into the specific resources, and you can take it as an RBAC visualizer if you're interested in seeing the whole map of RBAC permissions. And you can custom your dashboards. Everyone can have his own dashboard. I wrote here, developer is not a DevOps because they have, maybe sometimes they have the same interest, but most of the time, like developer can be very into CPU and memory usage, and the DevOps could be very much into, let's say, DevSecOps could be very much into security perspective. So you can create your own dashboard and just mix and match those. Yeah, so that was me. Thank you so much for being here. And you can come over to our booth if you still have any questions, or you can just ask it right out here. That's it.